Hey guys, Chaos here. Today I'm going to do an in-depth complete tutorial on the FakeCreative plugin. This tutorial will be fairly long, so please feel free to use the chapters to skip around if you're looking for a specific section. FakeCreative is a premium plugin that gives players the ability to enter an emulated creative mode. They will have access to all normal creative mode functions like custom hotbars, pick block, and creative items. Players will also be given or allowed to individually set custom preferences to enhance the creative mode experience. So why is FakeCreative a plugin worth using? Well, this is a unique plugin that is currently the only plugin that grants players an emulated creative mode, and you might ask yourself, why would you want to use FakeCreative over the default Minecraft creative mode? There are several reasons for this, mainly that most plugins have issues with default creative mode, as when it was developed by Mojang, it was not intended to be used in mass as it has been by players. The default creative mode is very buggy and easily exploitable, which is why many anti-exploit plugins contain restrictions for Minecraft's creative mode. FakeCreative was designed to resolve this, be unrestricted, and prevent exploits while also allowing a more seamless experience. Now with that brief overview, let's dive right into this plugin. To get things started, you can see here that I can access all the game modes of this plugin. I can go from survival to adventure, to spectator, and lastly creative. You will notice though that creative looks a bit odd and might not be what you're expecting. There are two reasons for this. Either it is a limitation of Minecraft, or it was intentionally done to prevent exploits. You will notice that none of the familiar functionalities are reflected in this emulated creative mode. This is because the actual creative game mode is never used. Instead, I'm technically in the survival mode, but I'm given creative abilities. This again is because the creative game mode created by Mojang is extremely exploitable. Therefore, we do not want to use it at all. Now you will see here that my crafting menu is pretty filled. These are called creative functions, which consist of the creative tab, which allows you to view and clone any of the items that exist in Minecraft into your inventory. The saved hotbars tab, which allows you to save multiple creative hotbars, so you can quickly swap or save hotbars for future use. The pick block tab, which enables pick blocking so you can clone a block or entity on the ground, placing it into your inventory. The destroy tab, which will delete any item dropped on it, or if shift clicked, will remove all the items in your inventory. And lastly, the preferences tab, which is accessible to admins or users if they are granted permissions to modify them. These preferences are player specific, unlike global preferences in the config file. This allows players to set their own custom preferences, changing how creative individually feels for them and allows a high degree of customization. Now let's take a deep dive into the individual creative functions. We'll start with the creative tab. As you can see here, we have the whole creative menu. We have all the items and you can click through the pages here, back and forth, as well as we have all the different individual types of items, so we can sort them by miscellaneous, or just simply food stuff, or combat. But we can also go back and see that simply left clicking the search items shows us all the items. But a menu like this doesn't allow for a search bar. Instead, we can go to the search items and shift left click it to then simply type in chat what we were wanting to search for. This can appear. We see the diamond items here. And if we simply want to stop searching, we can click on either the specification we want, or we can click on the search items. Once we are done, we can simply click the exit button and it will return us back to the game. Next, we have the pick block tab. We can simply click this and it will give us the pick block item, or we can click it again and it will take it away. We're going to take this pick block item and we can look at any block on the ground, such as this leaf, and we can get one spruce leaf. Or we can go down to this chicken and we can right click him and get the actual entity egg. This way, it is a replacement for the middle click. Now would be a good time to show the destroy item tab. So we can simply click and drop an item here to destroy it. But say we have a full inventory full of items, we can actually instead go to the destroy item tab and shift click it, and it completely clears our inventory. Now for the saved hotbars tab, we can simply click and you can see that we have a full loadout of 1 through 9 different hotbars. This is more than what vanilla Minecraft would give you. And you can simply left click to save, and you can see a quick preview of all the items in order of what is saved for that hotbar. You can shift left click it to load, or you can right click it and you can actually see exactly what your hotbar will look like when your items are restored. So we can clear our inventory, go back to the saved Hotbars tab, and simply shift left click it, and we will see our hotbar has been loaded. Now this hotbar is permanent. Now say we want to overwrite it. You can see I took some items out here, and we can go ahead and just left click it again, and it has updated. You can see this reflects what my hotbar looks like. And so that way we can now overwrite hotbars. Simply clicking exit will return you back to playing the game. As for the preferences tab, we have all of these custom preferences that are specific to every single individual player. So when you set this, it is for yourself and only for yourself. Each preference is customizable, and for example, we have allow flight, which as described, allows you to be able to fly while in creative mode. By default, this is true, and you can simply click it to set it to false. You can also change your desired flight speed, their braking speed. You can either prevent or allow swords to break blocks when you left click them. You can change your desired food level, your health level, the actual scale of your hearts, which is why you see a single heart down here. If your hunger should decrease while in creative. If you should be allowed to be burnt while in creative, such as taking damage. If all items in your inventory should be unbreakable while in creative. If blocks or entities should drop as if you're in regular survival. If pickup items should be destroyed if your inventory is full. If creative mode should be automatically restored when logging back into the server. If you should be invulnerable to damage. How long you are invulnerable to damage after exiting creative mode. If creative and survival mode should have different inventories, so when switching from survival to creative, your inventory will be stored, and returning back to survival, it will be restored. We can simply click exit to return. And that is all the creative functions that are currently available. Now switching over, we can go to the config file and see our global settings. Starting at the top, we have our config version. This is something you should not touch because it will break the file if the number does not match what the plugin is looking for. We have our specified language. Currently, the only available language for FakeCreative is English. We have our general section. Whether we should look for updates or not, setting this to false will simply disable checking for updates and prevent the messages from appearing in console. We have metrics logging. Simply setting this to false will disable telemetry data. We have debugging mode. If you set this to true, it will show a bunch of debug messages in console, which is helpful for if you're experiencing an issue and I am requesting additional information on a ticket. We have our database section, which we can specify if we want to use MySQL or simply use SQLite. Keeping this false defaults the database to SQLite, which will appear in your plugins folder. These settings, if MySQL is kept false, do not matter as SQLite does not require any authentication. Assuming we set MySQL to true, the database is simply the directory that we're going to be putting the FakeCreative information. We have our specified prefix that is customizable and is currently set to FC for FakeCreative. This will be simply the prefix of every table that is added to the database. We have the host, which is the IP of the database we are looking up. We also have the port, as well as the username and the password. Both the username and the password are hashed, so the only file that will contain the raw password is this file. As for the permissions section, we have it set automatically so that anything, if true, will be required to have permissions for the player. For example, we have the preferences, which is set to true. If it is a regular player, they will be required to have permissions in order to use preferences. As for players who are off, there is a specific section for them that is set to false, so they will not be required to have permissions to edit their preferences. We also have our permissions for commands, whether players who are opt should be required permissions to execute FakeCreative commands. Lastly, we have the preferences, which is similar to what is in-game and is exactly the same functionality, except these affect all players. So, if you had permissions set to false for preferences, therefore you did not want players customizing their own preferences, you can set global preferences to make creative experience identical for all players. Each of these are respective to the exact same thing in the Preferences tab. Moving over to the language file, we have our current and only English language file. and anything in here can be simply removed to prevent the message from being sent. For example, we can remove the text from inside the node by making it blank, and this will not send the message. Or more rather, we can remove the entire node, and that will prevent the message from being sent as well. The prefix will always be sent at the beginning of every message, so if you do not want a prefix, you can simply remove it, or you can change what you want as the prefix. Currently, the language file supports only the command messages. As you can see, it is specified as a command node. These are the default messages, the messages sent for the game modes, the menu, when checking for updates, as well as when purging the database. Placeholders are supported in the language file, and there's several custom placeholders you can find under the wiki of FakeCreative. However, if you have Placeholder API installed, you can use any of their placeholders inside these language files. Now, hopping over to the database file, it is called Player Data, located in your FakeCreative folder. We have my SQL browser here. You typically will not need to do this or see this, but it is good to show the example of what types of information is stored inside the database file. As you can see, this entirely consists of the preferences of each individual player, so that way their preferences are not lost when the server restarts. I feel it is good to show this to show a little bit of transparency of exactly what data is being kept. The plugin commands are pretty straightforward. You can use /Gamemode to access different game modes, or use its alias /GM. Plugin-specific functions can be accessed through /FakeCreative or its alias /FC. All game modes are available and you can cycle through them. They can be specified by their exact name or by their game mode number. 0 for survival, 1 for creative, 2 for adventure, and 3 for spectator. As for plugin-specific commands, you can access the help menu, check your permissions, reload configs, check for updates, force an upgrade, and purge the database. In order for your players to use FakeCreative, they will need the FakeCreative.use permission as well as corresponding permissions for the game mode you want them to be able to use, such as FakeCreative.mode.creative for the creative game mode. FakeCreative also has optional dependencies to make your experience better, such as Placeholder API for the use of placeholders, Protocol lib as it is better at detecting the creative events, Skin Restore to fix any items such as player heads, and BetterNick to prevent the plugin from being confused with better nicknames. Now, most importantly, for developers wanting to support FakeCreative, this plugin has its own API. You can simply add the repository and directly reference FakeCreative to access this API through the import of me.rockandchaos.fakecreative.api. Then you can browse its subdirectories such as .events and access FakeCreative events such as switching game modes. You can see the on-screen reference for what is currently available and its specific imports, as well as the details to add to your pom.xml file. Currently, as of version 1.0.2, that covers all available information for this plugin. If you are looking for a feature, do not hesitate to request it, as the developer is actively implementing feature requests. That's me, by the way. Well, that's all for me. See ya! If you have any feedback or suggestions for future videos, please leave it in the comments down below. If you need support, or you just want to hang out, feel free to join the Discord server using the link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more and hit that like button for future content. And thanks for watching.
Yeah.